That's a good question. For me, because it's not something that's written in the play, I think, you know what I mean? Like, there's no moment that says, like, why doesn't he bring it up? I mean, I think here's a truth of our justice system, right? Is that people are wrongly incarcerated every day, and there are huge, horrible processes that one has to go through to remedy that. And oftentimes people are wrongly incarcerated for the duration of their charge or are put to death for falsely. And the information that was pertinent existed prior to their incarceration or prior to them being executed. And there's still nothing that can be done about it. I think one side of it is sort of endless bureaucracy. And I think the other side, in the case of Paul, is I think it's a matter of the time and place. I think he is only beginning to realize the potential for cross-racial relations and things like that. I think that's all pretty new for him. So I think to bring up a piece of evidence that would be against the wishes of the sheriff or would complicate the matter would make things really difficult on him. But I do think, I think as a result, he probably feels really, my assumption is that Paul feels really guilty because I think he doesn't want to kill Jefferson, and yet he's sort of tasked with all the things that go along with that.
So then I also think that it's just another reason why our children need to be more conscious of what they're doing and their surroundings and things, because Jefferson didn't even speak up for himself because he was afraid.
Yeah.
And so he was put to death for something that he didn't do.
And even in the case, even in the case of times that things do happen that you could be charged for or incarcerated for or something, I have personal experiences with close friends and things like that. Wrong place, wrong time is very real. And making bad decisions for one moment can have repercussions forever. And I think that is part.
Yeah, I think when we talked about this in rehearsal a lot is understanding the historical context of 1948. And in 1948, things like this happened, and it kind of just was what it was, right? I mean, a deputy like Paul, whose personality might have even been rare at the time, wouldn't step into what is an institutional practice, right? The racism at the time was institutionalized. It was in everything that was, especially in places like the backwoods of Louisiana. It just was that. That just was the system. So Grant didn't stare into sheriff's eyes, or he wasn't too aggressive with him because he could have got hung. Right? It's just a reality. We say in our 21st century minds that, oh, I wouldn't have stood for that. We wasn't back then. And if we was, and we acted the way that we thought we act today, then we'd be in trouble, certainly. So I think everybody knew their place, and that meant that everybody involved, maybe even the sheriff, had an idea that Jefferson was innocent. But that didn't matter because 12 white men said he was guilty because there was a white man dead, and that just was that. And as sad and horrible as that is, that's what it was. Now that doesn't negate any of the thoughts that we just talked about. In 2013, if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you're a young black male, somebody's going to try to hold you accountable. So the choices that you have to make are very important to kind of try to circumvent that becoming your reality. But as a matter of history, that was a circumstance that that all of us that look like us lived in. I mean, even the white folks, for real.
And not just in 1948.
Certainly.
You know what I mean? 1970s is when I first went to college. And the college campus that I was on, in the backwoods, there were KKK signs for meetings. I was asked to leave towns. I wasn't allowed to perform in certain places. And we're talking about the 1970s. Not that far removed. Not at all.
And even to tag on to what Walt just said, it's just kind of crazy, like, because I put myself into like a lot of situations dealing with like social injustice and stuff like that. They didn't even have people out there protesting, like, save Jefferson. Like, they just accepted it. Like, it was just good like that. So to have that sense of loneliness and that sense of like you can't do anything about it. It just is what it is, and that's just hard. It's totally different. I'm not saying that it's totally different from what it is now, but at least now you do have a voice and something that you can do when you do see something like that happen. So
I mean, more and more we need to remind ourselves that you guys are the future. And so when you come to see things like this, we hope that you're leaving and saying that's not going to happen to my children. That's not going to happen to me as I get older. I'm going to stand up and say what's right. And then I'm going to do something about it.
And, I think in terms of the influence that I think any theater artist would ideally have on somebody, regardless if they have a play that has this kind of relevance or not, anything that speaks to humanity, one of the other things that, we're always hoping people take away from it, whether it's their first time in the theater or their millionth time in the theater, that this is something, these kinds of conversations and these kinds of emotions and sentiments are something that theater is capable of. And that's certainly a concern of mine, that I think people forget that pretty easily. But to be in the same room and sort of be forced to experience that with us, I think is powerful. Hopefully it is.
Like I've been in rehearsal with this cast since October.
Yeah, the first thing
Right.
after that.
October. I've never watched the last part of the show. I can't. I can't watch it. And so as soon as I leave off stage, I go straight back to the dressing room because I can't handle the electrocution thing. I can't. I don't know about anybody else, but me. I can't. As a black mom, I can't handle it. So I always stay in the back where I don't see it.
So other questions? Yes, ma'am.
It's a comment. I am from Louisiana, born and raised in Louisiana. And I'm in my 70s, so I know a lot went on. And so much of it still goes on. I'm sure you all listen to the news, and you know a lot of people have been wrongly killed, executed in the backwoods. But the most important lesson I saw in this, that he was saying, the kids don't want to learn. I don't want to teach them. That's why I don't want to be here. And today the kids seem like they don't want to learn. But it's so important for our young kids to learn so that they can move forward. They can be the future. You can't go to class every day. You don't take your pencils, your paper. You don't bring your assignments. Everything that is disheartening for the teachers if you're a teacher. They said, okay, bring in your assignments. Take your papers home. None of this happened. The kids don't think learning is really important. Even now. And it's sad when they just go because the law says you have to go. You want to go because you want to go. Because you want to know about you. You want to learn. Don't just sit back there and play. Some of the kids, they sit and they fidget and they fidget. They tune it out. Learn. Learning is important. Make your parents.
You have to make a choice, guys.
Make your teachers feel like it's worthwhile. Because so many teachers go and they see these kids, they're disheartened too. And you don't want that to happen. So it has a lesson in there.
I'd like to piggyback on what the lady was saying. I'm actually not feeling, I'm like really good. I'm like really, really sick. But I'm a teacher, and I teach adjudicated youth. And adjudication means every kid in my classroom, every kid in my school has been arrested for some crime. You don't come to my school unless you've been arrested. And you have kids who don't want to learn, and it's funny that she picked that out because that's the thing that I picked out. Grant's frustration. That is so relative to what's going on today. And it's not by accident, it's all by design. My mother used to say to me when I was growing up, the best way to keep a secret from a black person is to put it in a book. Because we won't read it. And it's a shame because as a black child, as a black person, you should take pride and have a desire to want to learn. If you know your history, There's a Auntie Lou, there's a Miss Emma whose hands bled from picking cotton. There are people who died, who got ate up by dogs and got hoses sprayed on them by Bull Connor. And these people, so that they would not want to be educated. And it didn't deter young African Americans from wanting to be educated. And now the system has shifted, and you have young African American kids, and it's also starting to filter down into young white kids, young Hispanic kids, kids who are born here. Like, we don't put value and stock in education. They're not building any more schools. They're closing schools. All in Philadelphia, all in Pennsylvania. They're closing schools and they're building more institutions. My son is a parole officer. My brother-in-law is a parole officer. My sister-in-law is a parole officer. So that they're making education so that you're not interested, then you become bored and not challenged. You have to find ways to challenge yourself. Your teachers are there to teach. You make them teach. You make them teach. You make them do their job. And the one thing that a teacher loves to do is a true teacher loves to teach. And if you just ask questions, even when you don't understand, he told Jefferson the best thing that you wrote down was that you didn't understand God. If you don't understand, you don't understand. That's not a crime. It's not a penalty. It's not a knock against you. That's why the adult and that's why the teachers are here to teach you. So
You know,
make
it's
them
your
teach.
right. You know, when we talk about what are your rights, it's your right to get an education. It's your right to be able to graduate from school and go and be whatever you want to be. It's your right. You have a right to be able to make the amount of money you want to make. You have a right to go live where you want to live. But if you give up your rights, then you can't blame anybody. How many people in here have a favorite rap song? Tell the truth. How many of you? How many of you have a favorite singer? It's your right to have that. How many of you have a favorite book? How many of you have a favorite subject in school? Take what is your favorite and build on that and understand that everything is relative. If you can read the lyrics of a song, you can read a history book. If you can memorize all the dance moves for all the single ladies, you can memorize math because dance is math. You're counting. That's it. See, what we don't always do is realize that everything is relative. Math, dance choreography steps. You got to count. Rap, reading and writing. It's not hard. 1 and 1 is never going to be 11. 1 and 1 is always going to be 2. No matter what. No matter where. No matter how rich. No matter what race. No matter whether you go to church or not. 1 and 1 is always going to be 2.